What's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. My name is Trelana, and today we're talking about Gazlowe and the 4-man. So this is a build idea that was presented to me from one of our sister teams, Cloud of Minds After Dark. They kind of came up with this idea on their own. Thank you, Venus, for being awesome and doing this. And our team kind of saw it and thought it was an interesting idea. I'm part of the main Cloud of Minds team, and so we sat down and thought, oh, we'll give it a bit of a try. It's actually a really interesting playstyle. The whole point of this build, to give a quick overview before I get into more details later, is you're replacing one of your mages or auto attackers or whatever your damage dealers are to pick up good damage, not crazy damage, mind you, but good damage, and getting a lot more CC on top of all that. So with that being the case, let's actually talk about the build itself. So starting at level 1, we're going to do Big Game Hunter. It's just default the best Gazlowe talent. It gives you the ability to drop 3 turrets right around you very quickly instead of having to wait a little bit to get that 3rd turret down. It's also a great one that whenever you're auto-attacking heroes, mercenaries, or monsters, you get scrap back much quicker. So this is great on maps like Infernal Shrines, on maps like, another good one would be BOE, etc. Anything where it lets you get lots of auto-attacks off onto either monsters or where you're going to be doing a lot of merc camps and things like that. It's great for that, and it helps to generate scrap quickly, which is something you're going to want to be doing. Plus, there's benefits later on for auto-attacking, even if it's not against one of those kinds of targets, and we'll talk about that once we hit 13. At level 4, you're going to be taking Hyper-Focus Coils. This is where we start to do some of our damage on Gazlowe, because it starts to do quite a good chunk of damage, and you're getting some pretty good passive healing off of just landing your abilities. This is again where I kind of say Gazlowe falls into more of that mage-style role, and why you might see it replace a mage. More than likely, though, you almost treat this as a slot for like your auto attacker or just whatever damage dealer in general, and it helps to add some quick damage like that in team fights. We'll get to that in a minute as well. Level 7, there's 2 talents you can go for. You can actually see my favorite is Master Blaster. I'm also a big fan of Overload. The big point of this build is you want to drop as much damage in as short of a window as possible, and being able to get off 2 lasers to do potentially 4% of the other team's health back-to-back really fast, plus the Explodium charge under that can potentially be 6% of the enemy team's health. And if they stay clumped up, you can just fire laser after laser after laser, and it adds up really, really, really quickly. The only real downside of this is you really need the enemy team to stay clumped up and stay still, which is not always going to happen. In those cases where you're not going to have a ton of lockdown, but you're going to have some, Master Blaster is actually the way to go, because every time you land your laser or your Explodium charge, it provides a 35% slow. This is a way to help catch up on enemy teams quicker. This is a way to help you chase people down a little more effectively. It's just a really good talent overall. Plus, that slow gets extended by your turrets auto-attacking them. So, just a really nice talent to have overall, especially have lots of little turrets up all over the place. And even if they're not all focused on one target, which they should be, but if they're not, and they're hitting multiple enemy heroes, it kind of gives a nice blanket slow to all of them. Kind of a nice little ability to have overall. Level 10, come on, there's only one heroic. You don't take Robo Goblin at all. Even if you're playing offlane Gazlowe, I rarely ever see this being that good unless you're specifically supposed to win the lane. And even then, when you come down for team fights, Gravel Bomb is just so good, it's hard to not justify taking it. At 13 is where you start to see even more of the power come into this mage-style play, because what we're seeing is rocket turrets start giving you spell power up to a maximum of 15%, and when you auto-attack, it extends the duration of your turrets. This can be really good because what you might end up having is, let's say that you're doing a lot of rotations on a map like Infernal Shrines. Anytime you auto-attack anything, it's actually causing the duration to get extended. So if you're putting turrets down for vision, and you're sitting down in a minion wave or whatever, and you need to get passive experience, or if you just need vision in an area, this helps you give you that vision. Plus the passive spell power is really nice for your abilities. At 16, we've got Farmaliza, which is where we start to get a lot of that burst damage to come in as well. Now, this causes your little turrets to fire a mini laser. It doesn't do the percentage damage, unfortunately, but it is doing a flat amount of damage. At 20, it's doing 275 per turret, which is pretty good. So we got 3 turrets here. Nope, missed a little bit there. But we've got 3 turrets, you fire them off. Every single one of them is doing a pretty significant chunk of damage and hitting the hero pretty effectively. All in all, really good burst. It helps, again, I know I'm kind of repeating myself here. It adds to that burst damage we're trying to work our way towards with this being in the comp. And it helps to follow up your CC really effectively. At level 20, you're doing Miniature Black Hole, which is really, really, really good. It's one of the best heroic upgrades in the game. It increases the radius, gives you more damage, plus every time you hit an enemy hero with it, it cuts the cooldown by a pretty significant chunk. And for the most part, this is the build as a whole. Again, you can kind of swap in Master Blaster if you need more passive CC to be going off, because you could potentially have a turret going here, a turret going here, a turret going here, and everybody could potentially be getting hit with lasers, and that slow will be going off on every single one of these heroes that is getting hit, and it can just give you overall really nice CC collectively. Plus, what's great about this is even if your turrets are hitting a bunch of different targets, like we're going to show it doing here, so you've got one hitting a target here, one hitting here, one hitting here. The nice thing about firing my laser is that the second you put it down, they all focus whatever target you want, and they can continue to go back to the targets they were hitting originally. So it still provides some nice slowing power, and if you just happen to catch other heroes with this, that slow adds up. And you ideally should be catching other heroes with this, because the way we're going to be using this build is to catch a bunch of enemy heroes out at once, hit them all with a bunch of laser damage, and possibly get some free blow-ups. I know that when I played this build for the first time in a more professional setting, I was with Clouded Minds going on against Waiting on Cherry, and we played it for the first time ever on Infernal Shrines, and we managed to get some pretty nasty combos off in the later part of the game. And what I'm about to show you right now is kind of the way that you want the build to play out for the combo. You're going to want to go Q, R, E, Q, Q, W. Obviously, you want to try to position this a bit better so they clump up more towards the middle. Let me go ahead and show it off one more time. Q, R, E, Q, Q, W. And you can see we did a pretty huge spike of damage there. If we can follow that up with another laser, either from, let's say we have like an ETC slide, a Garrosh taunt, a Ring of Frost, Zarya's Graviton Surge, any number of other heroics going on, if you've got that much CC going on, you're going to want to definitely take Death Laser. If you can only get that one pop of just raw damage out, you can still do a pretty significant chunk. I mean, let me go ahead and show what it's like with only one laser real quick. So we're going to go Q, R, E, Q, Q, W. We're doing about roughly 10,000 damage before anything else happens. Now, if we have someone like a Zarya or a Jaina or whatever, then the full combo with all damage is going to go like this. And while that second pip of laser damage is getting set up, you can maybe angle yourself a little bit differently. Like, for example, we got it so that they all clumped up in the middle here more vertically. So even with all my turrets being up, what I can do is I can go Q, R, E, Q, Q, W. Okay, then more in a straight line. Q. Ideally, of course, we want to switch over to here more so it's spreading damage that way. But, I mean, roughly you're doing about 13,000 damage, which is not bad. I even had that one instance where I got everything to line up a little better and do like 18,000 damage. This build adds up to do a ton of damage in a very short time frame, is the bottom line I'm getting at here. And it works really, really, really well in a very CC heavy team. It even works really well against CC heavy teams. So one thing I'm going to talk about really quickly here is, when do you want to bring this? Usually you want to bring this into matches where you're going against a team that has a lot of dive, a lot of frontline, because dropping the Explodium charge down is great. It's a great CC tool to have in the first place. Having the percentage damage tied to your laser gives you a way to do more raw damage against the other team and threaten to possibly get a pick more effectively. Even if you don't take the extra charge of damage, you can just slow heroes down, which is really, really nice. This can be a little frustrating against heroes like Anduin, who can pull them out of your turret range and get them away from that slowing power. But if they don't have anything like that, having that extra slow on top of everything else can really add up and possibly catch a hero out and give you a free kill. This is also really good for maps with lots of tight choke points where you have an objective. Garden of Terror is a great example of this. Cursed Hollow is a fantastic example of this, because it's going to pull everybody into those choke points. You drop the stun underneath them, you drop all the lasers on their face, get any kind of follow-up CC, and you drop a second laser on them. If you don't have a ton of follow-up CC or you use it all at once, then this can kind of miss out on it. But the bottom line is that you're bringing this in to act like a poor man's Asmodan, or like Actually, I think the best hero to describe this as is like a poor man Kael'thas. You're doing some spread damage with your turrets, you're doing some burst damage on one of your abilities, and you have some CC follow-up that requires a little bit of timing and skill shotting to do, but it does add up to make a pretty significant CC train. And that's kind of the benefit of taking the 4-man Gazlowe, is you get so much more utility out of him. You possibly get great vision out of him, depending on the map and depending on what you're doing. I definitely love Lunara. She's one of my favorite assassins, and she's fantastic at giving you vision. Gazlowe can kind of do it too. He doesn't provide the same utility that Lunara does, because she's doing continual ticking damage over time. That's just really hard to keep up with, and it's more consistent. But what Gazlowe does give you is the bigger wombo potential. In that match with Waiting on Cherry, I know that part of why we were able to win was because we had our offlaner Traxx using the Deathwing. And, I mean, the rest of our team got a little bit of damage off. I know Ruffian was able to use Firebomb on Varian and stun him. But just the fact that we had Gravel Bomb and Arrival of a God with all the buff damage that does, that alone just made that team pop in a heartbeat, which is part of what makes it so nasty. You don't even need your full team to necessarily be there to get all the wombo combo stuff off, and it can already do a good chunk of damage on its own. Comboed with one or two other players, it can just destroy a team. Now imagine if we could do that and we had like a Stukov, an ETC Mosh Pit, a Garrosh Taunt, Jaina with Ring of Frost, or if she doesn't go Ring of Frost, you get like Winter Muted Water Elemental, and just all that burst damage just in one spot. You'll delete teams pretty quickly. And the best part about it is that Gazlowe acts like a poor man's frontliner to a degree too. He does fairly significant damage, and he's a frontliner, so the thing that makes it good too is that it's not a super squishy mage in the back that has to poke or like get close and get into these scary spots where they get blown up to do damage. You're providing good utility, you're providing good CC, you're providing good damage on a beefy body. These are all the things that kind of add up to make the 4-man Gazlowe, I think, work really, really, really well and make him a very strong hero. Maps to consider him on, I would definitely say one of the best maps to do would be Infernal Shrines. I know I mentioned it a couple of times. I'm not trying to pick on any teams or anybody when I mention the match that I'm talking about. It's just the first time we really pulled it out, and it's a great map to do it on, just because you have the monsters at the shrine you're dealing with, so it gives you faster scrap recovery. You can put tons of turrets up to help kind of block skill shots and to kind of give you vision. 2, the Spire Queen is great because even if you're not getting the scrap CDR, you're going to kind of punch on the other team up and down between top and mid lane, possibly between mid and bot lane, however you're doing your rotations. It's also giving you the ability to set turrets up all over the place and extend the duration to get good vision. BOE is actually a good one because you can set turrets up kind of on the fringes of stuff, and even if you lose a turret to the Immortal smacking it with one of their abilities, you're getting that CDR by hitting the Immortal, which is really good. Long story short, I think 4-man Gazlowe is a new way to play him that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about too much. I could be completely mistaken on this, and it's been talked about already and people are already doing it, but I personally have not seen a lot of it, and I think it's a really fun build. It gives you, as an assassin player, a new tool to put into your belt to do pretty significant damage, to give your team a lot of good CC, to give you some amazing wombo combo potential, and to be more resilient. Probably one of the most fearful things for an assassin to have happen is when you get jumped on. In this case, you're in the front line, you're going to get hit. But guess what? I'm level 20, and as you can see, I'm at 5,200 health. Like, that's pretty substantial. I don't feel afraid of getting hit by anything. So, makes for a pretty nice beefy body to have. Pretty solid body, pretty solid damage, great utility in CC, great build in general. I think that's about all I have to say about it. So, with that being said, I will catch y'all later. Have a good one. Peace.